Let's see. See if we did it right. It's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
I did it. You're in frame.
Awesome.
Yeah. There we go. Sweet. Okay. So I don't know. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. The year is over. We made it to the end. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. So maybe the last podcast of the year. I don't know. There's another Friday. We'll see what happens. Um, but this is the podcast we wanted to do last week, but work schedules and holiday schedules they just got in the way. So we're just gonna pick up where we left off. We're gonna talk about minions in Dungeons and Dragons, and what is a minion in the terms of Dungeons and Dragons, and just tabletop in general, and video games in general, I guess, media in general.
Yeah.
And then what options do we have? And then which one works best, and that sort of thing. All right, so to jump in right away, minions are obviously little yellow tic tac shaped people that have goggles and a very successful movie franchise. I don't think anything summates Minions better than the Minion movies. But for D&D purposes, Minions is a lot more diverse than just little cuties that help bad guys do their stuff. Now, in the third and fourth age of Magic, kobolds were minions. They were just like the movie. Culturally, they would just attach themselves to the strongest, meanest monster or person in the area and just work for that person, because if they worked for someone strong, then they were strong. And that was kind of the basis of their culture. Now, in the fifth age of Magic, kobolds, they got this whole revolution going on. I don't know what's going on with kobolds anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But when the Minion movies came out, I was like, oh, it's just like kobolds. But not anymore. Not anymore. So what is a minion though, in the sense of like a video game or an action movie or a Dungeons and Dragons game? So what do you think of when you think of like a minion?
I think of a something that kind of like like a creature or something that is representative of another uh like a boss or something like that, that is something that you can just move through and get through. It could be dangerous, they could be but they're not supposed to be impactful, I guess, if that makes sense, by themselves.
By
Like,
themselves, they're not supposed to be
yeah,
impactful. Right,
by
right.
themselves they're not supposed to be impactful. Together they could be threatening, but the whole goal for a minion is to kind of foreshadow the boss, I think, for me, so for at least for me.
In a movie sense, things that come to mind for minions right away: stormtroopers. Right,
Yeah.
yeah, right away. Right, stormtroopers is just trash. They're just trash all across the board. They're just garbage.
There's a video I gotta send you that
Yeah.
that talks about how they're so good, and they give really convincing arguments that you're like, I hate myself for thinking that they make sense.
No, I think I've heard some of them that, these are important political prisoners, so obviously they can't shoot to kill, so they have to try to shoot to maim and
Hmm.
to wing and stuff like that, and that's why their aim is bad, and
Hmm.
on and on and on and on. But
Yeah.
the fact is, you get a whole bunch of them, and they are relatively ineffective, but they're effective enough that you have to deal with them, right?
Yeah.
There's never a scene in a Star Wars story where a shitload of stormtroopers show up and everyone's just like, ugh, and ignores them, right? Even though they never seem to hit anybody, they never seem to do anything useful. They're still there putting pressure
Yeah.
on the heroes, right? And then another great example is the very, I guess it's a very old movie now, Kill Bill, when she goes and she has to fight the Crazy Eights or the Crazy 88s or whatever, and
Mm.
she just has to fight all these dudes. And there's just
Yeah.
like an endless supply of dudes. And like every like 20 dudes, there's one dude that's like somewhat competent, but then
Hmm.
there's like another 20 dudes that aren't.
Yeah.
That is a perfect example of a fight that is a mix of minion and non-minion monsters with a boss
Hmm.
monster standing by, letting the minions wear you down, and then getting ready to kind of step in towards the end. So yeah, there's a lot of great examples, infinite examples if we went, into video games and stuff like that. Um, Mario Brothers, right? You see one Koopa Troopa, you're gonna be okay. You see 10 Koopa Troopas on the stage, and now you're a little nervous, right? Because
Yeah.
one of those shells gets out of hand. It might take out the others, but it might take you out, and then their shells are bouncing around, and all of a sudden there's a huge liability on the field. It's that idea that, yeah, by themselves, it's a joke. But if you get enough of them together, they do start to put some pressure. They do start to provide some almost environmental hazards.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like rain isn't bad by itself, but rain in the dark with heavy wind and mist obscuring your vision, like you add all those things together, starts to get real bad. Same thing with the minions. By itself, not a big deal. You get a bunch of them in there, starts to be a problem. Now you mix in some regular monsters with those minions, that's going to be rough. You add a boss in there with all that stuff, that's a lethal encounter. Uh, so how do we access minions for our 5th edition games? Fortunately, we have a lot of ways to do that. And the most recent way is MCDM's Flea Mortals. They're making their own monster book. It is, as all MCDM products, it is extremely well thought out, and production value is very, very high. They did a nice big Kickstarter for this. I'm sure WotC and Hasbro will be coming for their royalties in 2024 or whatever. But yeah, it's designed to take the minions from 4th edition and bring them over into this sort of modern D&D that we play. But before MCDM set out to do this, the great visionary, the great trailblazer, Giffy Glyphs, he went ahead and already did all this stuff. And I think he did a pretty damn good job of it. And if you look at the two different things, they are very similar in their design. Now, both of them are based on the 4th edition minion. So I brought up the D&D4 fandom.com wiki so that we could look at what a minion was in 4th edition times. And apparently 4th edition wiki is rife with spam, but I want them to get ads, so I don't have my ad blocker on. All right, so here we go. Specializes at disposable frontline combat. Groups in large numbers to overwhelm the party. Is vulnerable in all types of combat, especially AoEs. Usually is just composed of a large group of themselves, which is an interesting way to phrase that. And then they are hot garbage. So they, oh my god. So they have initiative bonus of 0. They have a static AC. They normally only have 1 hit point. They have static defenses. They have very low attack, and they have relatively low defenses. The idea is that they are a body on the field that is causing issues. One of the things I loved about minions in 4th edition is that these dudes scaled. So you could be level 1, fight a bunch of goblin minions. You could be level 16 and fight a bunch of level 16 minions. So understanding that the math in 4E was a lot more like Pathfinder 2, don't get too scared of the numbers that I'm about to read off to you. But a level 16 minion, an Aboleth Servitor, they're rolling a AC 30 with a 28 Fortitude, 23 Reflex, and a 21 Will, with a plus 19 to attack, but only a static damage of 7. And that was another important thing about minions, is that they rolled static damage. And that made it fast for the DM to roll. Because remember, in 4th edition, we had only just started playing D&D online. So in person, you didn't want to have to roll more dice than you needed to. Which is why they were kind of designed that way. They're very, very simple. They have one signature ability. So these guys have a little bonus if they are near the boss monster, which is an Aboleth. And that's it. That's all they got. But they still made things tough because area control became so important. Did the boss have these minions nearby? Then those minions were going to be stronger. and they were going to set the boss up for success. So you wanted to
Yep.
make sure that you were dealing with it. Um, Nowadays, right, we move forward to the Giphy minion. This is the version 3 PDF. I don't know if it's the most up-to-date one, but I know version 3 is the version he's currently on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how minions were set up. Minions have few hit points, not one hit point, few hit points, and deal reduced damage. These are your lackeys, underlings, and lesser henchmen, things that should be easily overcome. Yet minions can be a major threat when they attack your enemy or the enemy in large numbers. 4 minions is equal to 1 monster of the same CR or level. They are a great option when you want to pit the party against a mob of enemies. And then to start building a minion, choose a combat level and look at the minion template table below, or apply the minion template below to any existing grunt monster that you have. Now, this all hinges on you using the Giphy monster system for all of your monsters. Could you still use a Giphy minion if you weren't using the Giphy system? Certainly
Yeah.
could. But if
Hmm.
you're not going to lean into the entire system and you want to use mostly 5th edition stuff, but still have the design philosophy behind minions, I am going to just say go ahead and pick up the preview document for Flea Mortals, because in the free preview document, they tell you how to make minions. There's also a video that goes with this preview that's about minions that explains the entire process and walks you through making a sample minion, which is great.
I will
Uh,
say though that if you did wanted to use this system and you're using normal 5e and you just want to, I want this monster and I want to turn it into a minion,
mhm.
you really could. I guess if you're taking an existing monster and turning it into a minion, that's the Matt Koval route. If you're
Mhm.
making up a brand new monster, even if you're not using Giphy system and
From
everything
scratch, right? If you're
from
making a
scratch,
monster
you
from scratch, yeah.
yeah, this is pretty simple. It's just here's what their AC, here's what the damage they do, here's what
Yep.
their HP, how much HP they have, and it gives you everything there. And then you give it one trait, and then you give it an attack.
Yep. You want to make a minion from scratch. What level do you need that minion to be? The party's level 8. Here's a level 8 minion right across
Yep.
the board. It,
Mm-hmm.
it gets +5 to 2 of its stats. It gets a +2 to 2 of its stats. It gets a -1 to 2 of its stats. Its proficiency bonus is a +3. That's what its armor class is. That's how many hit points it has, and so on and so forth. Just walks you through the whole process. Then you throw elusive on it,
Mm-hmm.
which is you take no damage from a missed attack, even if it would normally deal damage on a miss. So it's basically even better than improved evasion or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Um, and then it says here if you want to add a little bit of spice, it can have 1 to 5 traits, attacks, or utilities, which are detailed elsewhere in the book. But generally, just come up with one ability and you're good to go. Do you
Yeah.
have? It's level 8, and they're fighting an entire pack of hellhounds. Something you could do then is just give every single hellhound immunity to fire. That's one trait, and then give every single hellhound the ability to have pack tactics. That alone is absolutely bananas if you just did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the same as making a wolf, even if you want to, minus the fire immunity. So yeah, you could keep it really simple. If you have a D&D monster in mind that you would like to turn into a minion, then this is definitely a great guide here. So you can see that MCDM is definitely taking the Giphy glyph, which is to say the 4th edition D&D approach of giving monsters roles. This is very important because roles make it a lot easier for a DM to build encounters. Because you can look at an encounter and say, what am I trying to do with this encounter? What do the players need to do in this encounter? Why are we even having this encounter? And then once you have that idea, you can have a better idea of what sort of monsters you are going to need. And that's where these roles come in. They do all these different things. So let me try to zoom ahead to the minion section. All right, so here's an example of a goblin minion in the MCDM universe. So this goblin is a minion, and it is considered a CR 1/4 minion. So 4 of these allegedly would equal 1 CR4 goblin or CR1
I think
one quarter goblin?
his was 1 to 5.
1 to 5. Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
a
And
minion is 1 to 5 of the CR of its normal counterpart.
now you might say to yourself, that's freaking crazy. Like 5 monsters for one monster. That action economy's got to be completely out of hand. Don't worry. These monsters literally deal 1 damage. Well, they have a +1 dexterity bonus. They got a +2 proficiency bonus. How do they have only 1 damage? Because it's a game, guys. Because it's a game. You make up whatever math you want. This is minion math. All right, they do 1 damage. Now, one of the things they do for running these is you're not running 5 separate goblins. The
Yeah,
more monsters there are together, they start to function as one big monster, and that's part of what makes these minion rules so good, in my opinion. Do you happen to know what page the actual minion part is? Oh yeah,
well, I'm. Are you? Is that the first the
yeah.
free
This
one?
this is the preview document. Yeah.
It's close to the bottom, almost at the
Okay.
bottom.
Yeah, I'm in the new rules
22,
section.
22.
22. Okay, got it, got it, got it. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, optional rules, minions, and shared attacks. If a player wants to speed up their retainer's turn, blah, blah, blah. So minions, okay. Minions are weak foes that allow GMs to create dynamic encounters with hordes of enemies without overwhelming the characters. In fact, an encounter with minions makes characters feel heroic since they can take on a myriad of foes and live to tell the tale. However, minions still make threatening foes. Killing a minion still requires penetrating their defenses, and characters can't just shrug off damage from minion attacks. How do minions make running a horde of enemies quick and easy for the GM? Minions are simple to run. They have simple stat blocks that are small and uncomplicated. Minions act quickly. They don't multi-attack. They don't roll for damage, or take bonus actions or reactions, so their turns are not very long. Minions die fast. In fact, a character can kill several minions with a single weapon attack. Now, this is something that 4th edition did not have, because 4th edition had AoE access on every character class. So it was really up to the player to decide if they liked doing AoE or not. If they preferred targeted damage versus AoE damage. But that flexibility was available to every single playable class, not just spellcasters. Now, in before Pathfinder bros jump in and say, "Well, it's like that in Pathfinder." We know, we know it's in Pathfinder 2. But in 5e, not everybody has access to AoE. So what they did with MCDM minions is all minions unlock and are affected by the cleave rule from the Dungeon Master's Guide. So if I deal 8 damage, and that is enough to kill one minion, whatever damage is left could kill another minion if there's enough damage there to kill another minion. So a big beefy melee attack could actually slice through multiple enemies. What about ranged attackers? So ranged attackers is a straight line, so a piercing arrow sort of thing. If you make a ranged attack and it hits a target and there's leftover damage, it will go through that first target and hit the next one behind that target. So you could essentially like skewer like a bunch of dudes on one arrow, which is a huge epic fantasy, like hero fantasy situation.
A cool part about that is that if you're fighting a bunch of minions, that's gonna force like your range character to say, "Oh, I want to move so I can get that
Absolutely,
shot."
yeah. Not just gonna stand there aiming every round
Mhm.
to get that advantage. Yeah. So, furthermore, minions have strength in numbers. Their attacks can be grouped together to make them deadlier and faster at the table. Also, minions don't have any hit dice, so you don't have to worry about figuring that out. There's no damage rolls. They just deal flat damage. That also means minions can't do critical hits. So now you don't have to worry about some random, like little goblin getting lucky and taking out one of the main characters in just a lucky strike. Trust me, there'll be plenty of other opportunities for horrible player deaths. Don't worry about that little goblin not being able to do it. Again, these are supposed to function more as environmental effects, in my opinion, than to be treated as actual monsters, right? These are something that is not the main focus per se of the battle. They are influencing the battle and influencing the battlefield, but you can't really think of them as a DM, at least, as straight up monsters because they don't work exactly the same. It's very fascinating how they set this up. They also share turns, which is great. If you play with active initiative, Hubobi, yeah, that's good stuff. So typically all minions of the same stat block act on the same turn. Since they share a turn, the minions can move into position and then, and this is very important, not only do they share an initiative, they share an initiative. They are acting as a legion. So they can all move, period, and then they could all attack if they wanted to. Instead of, okay, they're all sharing an initiative, but I have to do each one at a time. No, they're almost like a swarm, in so much as they're all allowed to move together, and then they're all allowed to attack together, which I think, again, is very smart design, especially as someone that likes to use active initiative. I love the idea that I could just get all of them into position, and then we worry about the attacks that they do. I think that's really, really smart design. Minion trait. Every minion has the minion trait, which affects the creature in the following ways. If the minion takes any damage from an attack, or as a result of a failed saving throw, their hit points are reduced to 0. Period. The end. Any damage at all, they die. You don't have to keep track of anything. That is something that I feel they have superior to the Giphy Glyph stuff. Because the Giphy Glyph stuff, they're still going to have hit points. So they're still going to have to be dealt with in the more conventional means. Now,
I mean, you still kind of have to track that hit points because you have to deal with the overkill stuff.
But the overkill only triggers on weapon attacks. So it wouldn't trigger on any spell attack, I believe, does not cause that to happen. The overkill. Well, we're about to get the overkill though.
Yeah.
If the minion takes damage from any other effect, they die if the damage equals or exceeds their hit point maximum. Otherwise, they take no damage. Now, this is important, and you do need to know what their hit points are because, and this was per the designer, they didn't want a single spike growth to wipe out 99 minions, right? So if the minions can survive, what is it, 2d4 damage per 5 feet moved or some shit like that as a spike growth, 1d4, something like that. If you know that they will survive that damage, don't even worry about it. Like, they just managed to get through the spike growth. I don't know, sucks. It's just how it is, but they're not going to die from the spike growth. Is that going to make people using spike growth feel a bit salty? Probably. I mean, you get to use spike growth. It's one of the best spells. Don't be too salty about it, you know? You still have access to walls and all sorts of other stuff that you can use to funnel minions and control the battlefield, but and if they're low enough level or low enough hit point minion, then yeah, that's amazing. Your spike growth is just going to shred all of them. It's going to be incredible. All right, so then we go over here to overkill attacks. Powerful weapon attacks can kill more than one minion in a single maneuver called an overkill attack. As already discussed, a weapon attack requires only 1 point of damage to reduce a minion to 0 hit points. Notice they said a weapon attack. Yep, not an environment attack, not a spell attack, a weapon attack. Regardless of their hit point maximum. However, when a weapon's attack damage does exceed the minion's hit point maximum, the attack becomes an overkill, and the damage dealt beyond the minion's hit point maximum becomes overkill damage, which we just discussed. It's the cleave rule from the Dungeon Master's Guide that every Dungeon Master has read. The Dungeon Master's Guide, obviously, so we all know exactly which rule we're referring to. Overkill damage can be applied to a second minion that has the same stat block as the target and is in overkill range. See below. Damage against the second minion is counted as if you made a weapon attack against them, since it only takes 1 point of weapon damage to kill them. So you're guaranteed to kill that second minion if you overkilled the first minion, which is pretty cool. Let's see. But wait, it gets better. If the initial attack's overkill damage exceeds the second minion's hit point total, the leftover overkill damage can roll over to a third minion, and so on. If, in other words, for each time the overkill damage exceeds the new target's hit point maximum, the attacker can choose an additional minion to reduce to 0. For example, when a weapon attack deals 18 damage to a minion with a hit point maximum of 5, the overkill damage is 13. If there are 3 additional minions of the same stat block in overkill range, they can all 3 be immediately reduced to 0 hit points, since the overkill damage exceeds the target's hit point maximum more than twice over. So 18 damage, you just killed 4 minions.
3. Oh, 3.
Well, it says 3 additional.
Oh, I said 3 additional or 2 additional?
It's three
Oh, yes,
additional. Yeah, it's three
yeah, three
additional
additional.
because 13,
Yeah,
right?
13 is
13,
higher than
5,
2.
5 and 5, and then that leftover 3 damage is enough to kill one more, and then it
Yeah,
stops. So 18 damage
yeah.
kills 4 minions. It's pretty fucking cool.
All right.
Oh, here's the thing though. Overkill attacks can't be made as part of an opportunity attack though, which I think is fair. Which I think is fair.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Name the
Uh,
overkill attacks.
oh yeah, overkill range. Minions must be within a certain range to qualify for an overkill attack, determined by whether the attack is a melee or ranged attack. When a creature hits a minion with a melee attack, other minions within reach of the attack are in overkill range and can be chosen as additional. So, of course, glaive fighters, once again, cream of the crop, top of the mountain. Glaive fighters forever.
I
Um,
guess with this you couldn't like swing and then move to get
yeah,
more than one minion.
be cool if you could, though. Be cool if you could.
Yeah.
Ranged overkill attacks, we talked about, it only affects a straight line. So it's the direction of the initial shot.
Mhm.
Now we get to the good stuff here, group attacks. Each minion has a group attack action that speeds up play. In a group attack, 2 to 5 minions of the same stat block that share a turn can all use their action to take the same action and attack one target, provided the target is within the attack's reach and range for each minion. So, best case scenario, you've got medium-sized minions and a medium-sized target. 8 minions could attack one target because each one would be in a space surrounding that, on a grid, right? There's 9 squares. You're the donut hole in the center, and then all the minions are around you. That's 8 minions. Make a single attack roll for the group. It counts as one attack. Here's where it gets really cool. A group attack gains +1 bonus to the attack roll for every minion in the attack. So if 4 goblin minions make an attack roll together, the attack roll gains a +4 bonus. So they get the initial attack, which for the goblin minion we saw was a +3, and then because 4 of them were working together, it's now +7. That's pretty good, especially at low
Mhm.
level. +7 at low level, that's pretty good. If the group attack hits, multiply the damage. Don't add, multiply the damage by the number of minions that made the group attack. For example, if 4 goblins hit with an attack, they normally deal 1 damage. Now they deal 4. But what if there were 4 mobs attacking and their base damage was 5? Now they just did 20 points of damage with a single attack. And that's pretty significant damage at any level. And now you don't have to roll 4 different attacks. You rolled 1 attack, and it has the impact of 4 attacks. I really like that a lot. I think that's so smart. I think that's so smart. And there are rules for this in the DM's guide. There's it's for like crowds, mobs, and I believe swarms. But basically, a mob of monsters should work like this, but unfortunately, the way the DM's Guild, or not the DM's Guild, DM's Guide is set up for mobs, it is complicated. There's a whole table of like how many are attacking, what's the target armor class, what's the base attack roll. This is such an elegant way of handling it compared to how the DM's Guide suggests it. I really like how these group attacks are set up. Let's see. The DM decides how many minions participate in a group attack. For instance, if 5 minions surround a target, the GM may decide that all 5 attack at once to speed it up, or they may break it up into a couple of different group attacks if they would like. A single minion can even use their group attack action on their own. They make the attack as a normal creature would and simply don't benefit from any of the group bonuses. So. Advantage and disadvantage. A group attack is only made with advantage or disadvantage if all the minions making the attack have advantage or disadvantage. So this might be why you would want to split up who is a part of the group attack. Because if one goblin minion was vicious mockeried by a suboptimal play, I'm just going to put that out there. I guess he'd be dead though if he got
Yeah.
vicious mockeried because he took a point of damage, so he would have
Yeah.
died, right? But that's not a weapon
Mhm.
attack though. So maybe he
So
wouldn't. Maybe he wouldn't be dead.
that's true. It's not a weapon attack.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah. If you had 1 goblin out of 5 that was a disadvantage,
Oh,
they would be like, no. We don't want you to be a part of the attack because we want to try to get advantage on this attack. but they'd all have to have advantage. So essentially, the person would have to be prone, right? Which would then give all of the attacking goblins advantage against them.
I just went back and looked at the thing.
Yeah.
If you go to the minion trait, it says if a minion takes any damage from an attack or
Oh,
as the
okay.
result of a failed saving throw, their HP is reduced to 0.
Okay. Okay.
And then afterwards it says if a minion takes damage from another effect, they die if the damage equals or exceeds their hit point. So if it's static, if it's like a non-saving throw based damage or non-attack based damage, like if it's just environmental damage where there wouldn't be a save involved or attack involved, then if the damage is not enough to pass their HP,
they just ignore it.
They ignore it.
Gotcha.
But if they're targeted by an attack or targeted by a spell or anything that forces them to make a saving throw, if they take any damage, they die. So yeah, the Mistress Mockery will one shot no matter what.
All right.
If they fail.
If they fail, beautiful. All right. Target response effects. If a group attack triggers a reaction or similar effect that would normally affect a single attacker, such as a fire shield, damage shield, or a hellish rebuke, the target of the group attack picks only one minion that was part of the attack to be affected by the spell, which I think is pretty fair for the minions at least. Group opportunity attacks. If a creature provokes an opportunity attack from more than one minion, and those minions have a melee group attack action, the minions can each use the reaction to make a group attack as an opportunity attack. So it sounds crazy at first because it sounds like each of them is triggering a group thing, and they are. But once they join someone else's group, they don't get to make their own separate one, right? So if you provoked from 4 goblin minions, the DM could make 4 separate opportunity attacks, or they could make one big opportunity attack, or they could make, a 2 and 2 opportunity attack. So they have that flexibility there. All it's saying is if you provoke multiple opportunity attacks and the minions share the same stat block, they can trigger a group attack, essentially. Yeah. All right, so what about this group saves? I don't want to roll all these separate saving throws. God, I don't even like doing it in Foundry. It's one of the only things that I am tempted to run automation on is these saving throws because it gets so tiring when especially you get to higher levels and big groups of bad guys are being affected all at the same time. So, how do you handle it if I've got 30 goblins on the field and they all just got fireballed? What the hell am I supposed to do? Though minions often make saving throws individually, there are times when rolling individual saves for each minion could slow down the action, like when a cleric surrounded by 18 specter minions uses Turn Undead. When many minions with the same stat block need to make a saving throw against the same effect at the same time, you can make one saving throw for a group of up to 5 minions at a time. All minions in a group use the result of the saving throw. I love it. I love it. Let's see. For instance, if 34 goblin minions need to make a saving throw against Hypnotic Pattern, I don't know how 34 goblins would be in the area of effect of a Hypnotic Pattern, but maybe. Let's see.
They're tiny.
Yeah, if they're tiny, sure. The minions would make a total of 7 saving throws against the spell. 6 for 30 minions divided into 6 groups of 5, and 1 more saving throw for the final group of 4 minions. I'm into that shit. I like that.
Yeah.
That seems pretty good. I'd probably bust out the marker and be like, squeak, like this group is going to roll and this group's going to roll. But yeah.
Yeah.
Optional rule, tough minions. Minions of a higher challenge rating, such as abyssal ghouls or fire giants, make powerful foes. Consequently, it could break the game's verisimilitude for an NPC commoner to kill such a minion with a single attack. To keep minions believable, you can use the following rule. When a minion's challenge rating is at least 6 higher than an NPC's challenge rating, that NPC's actions and traits affect a minion as if they weren't minions. Reducing the minion's hit points like a normal creature would instead of automatically dropping them to 0. And that's another reason why they do have hit points. One is for overkill. I like that because, okay, you're high level, you're living your Dritz-Duerden and the Heroes of Mithril Hall fantasy, and you're fighting 50 giants at once, and everybody's describing their badass anime kill shots as they just carve through 50 fucking giants at once. But none of them are going to be spillover, or none of them are going to be overkill attacks. That's for damn sure. Like,
Hmm.
if you're dropping over 200 points of damage in a single melee attack or a single bow shot, I don't know. I guess it could happen. It could happen with like a sneak attack, high level sneak attack maybe, and a critical hit. I
Yeah.
don't know, but yeah, for the most part, you're going to be killing one giant per attack. You're not going to be cleaving through all the giants. So yeah, I like that as well because you still get that fantasy of like, damn, these people are so strong that they are actually cutting down a field of giants. That's incredible. Having played, having played through or having run Storm King's Thunder, and then the follow-up stuff for Storm King's Thunder, which was scaled to be much higher in level. God damn, that would have been kind of nice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to the Fire Giant dungeon, and instead of me making you work your way through 180 hit points per giant, I was just like, well, there's like 40 Fire Giants coming. 40 Fire Giants? Yeah, 40 Fire Giants are coming. Oh my god! But then you guys realize that they're minions, and you're like, oh hell yeah. And then it's like it'd be a lot cooler. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and it would also reflect the power and strength of those characters, and it would also allow for a more exciting event because you would never send 40 giants against anybody ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
That fight would take 10 hours. Like, it doesn't matter what fucking level they're at. You are not going to send 40 giants. You might send them with these rules, though.
Mm.
Be kind of cool. All right. So let's see. Special traits. Many minions have traits that give them strength in numbers, but become less powerful as their allies are defeated. For example, an enemy that starts their turn within 5 feet of 3 or more goblin minions must succeed at a saving throw or take damage from tiny stabs. I thought that was adorable. So the goblin minion has an ability called Tiny Stabs. So if you start your turn next to 2 or more goblins, you have to make a saving throw. And if you don't make it, you take damage equal to the number of goblin minions around you to represent that they are an environmental hazard. They're just stabbing at
Yep.
you constantly, and maybe one of those stabs will finally get through. I love stuff like that. I think that's really, really cool. Challenge rating. Minions have a challenge rating just like any other creature. However, their experience point value is 1/5 that of a standard creature of the same challenge rating. Aside from their damage output and the minion trait, a minion's statistics are on par with creatures of that challenge rating. When the rules reference a challenge rating such as the Polymorph spell or a Cleric's Destroy Undead feature, use the minion's listed challenge rating as normal. And then it tells you how to build some minion encounters. And it says, don't let your players figure this out on their own. If you're running minions in a fight, just tell them that you're
Yep.
running minions. Because if I sent 40 giants against my players and they didn't just immediately log off of of chat, they would be pretty upset with me, and they would assume correctly that they should get the fuck out of there, right? So you just need to break the fourth wall and just be like, hey, I know this looks crazy, but this next fight gonna be a bunch of minions. So don't have a heart attack, don't have an anxiety attack. Don't quit playing Dungeons and Dragons. Don't pretend that you got an important phone call and you have to leave. Like, it's gonna be okay. This is just this is to show you like the massive forces that that you're facing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think that is really good advice for them to include in the book to tell
Yeah.
people up front. Not too many. When you're planning your encounters, think of 5 minions as one creature. While it might be exciting to throw a few hundred minions, that's like them facing 20 standard creatures. So I keep saying, I'll send 40, I'll send 40. 40 is only 8 monsters, right? Because 40 divided by 5 is 8. I feel like 40 is a pretty good amount. I've run encounters with 8 monsters before. Yeah. So also consider running minions in waves. It doesn't say this in the book, but I'm just going to throw that out myself. Like,
Yeah.
have minions just show up from like off screen. Just more minions show up. Like,
Yep.
that can also be a great way to have infinite bad guys, to give the sense of you can't stay here much longer, right? Like, you could stay here a long time, but there's no way that you could stay here forever. It's a great way to say hundreds of orcs are headed your way. And then you start throwing, maybe 10, 15 at a time, and then you say hundreds more appear on the horizon. Like, let the players know, I got orcs for days. I'll never run out of orcs. Like, I will
Mhm.
keep throwing these orcs at you. And then remind them also that you're playing with milestones so that they don't think that you've created a Minecraft XP farm for them. And yeah, so just kind of keep that in mind. And then make sure to mix in regular creatures, obviously, but not
Yeah.
something that people would think about. Cut the choke points. Since minions are most effective in numbers, avoid encounters in cramped dungeon tunnels and similar choke points. Combat becomes dull in tight quarters if only a couple of minions can attack at a time. Makes a lot of sense. And then it goes on to explain
I
how to build a minion. It's so good. I was very impressed with this. I was so impressed with this.
I will say that if you're gonna do a choke point area and you want to use minions, that at that point use the Gifly Gift minion.
Oh yeah, that's a bit more advanced and has a bit more
Yeah.
going on there.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, you can definitely use both types of minions,
Yeah.
no problem. And if you wanted to be ridiculously lazy, you could just say you needed a bunch of orc minions, just take a regular ass orc,
Yeah.
just give him one hit point, just give him one hit point. That's the most basic way to do it. But keep in mind that a regular ass orc rolls a d12 for damage, so you might want to look at these rules, the Giphy ones and or the Flea Mortals. My recommendation, as much as it hurts me to say this, my recommendation would be go with the Flea Mortals. I think the Flea Mortals one is just a better, it's just a better set of rules for minions. I think
Yeah.
I think they built on what Giphy had. I can't, I'm not calling them out or anything, but I'm just saying I think that it's very obvious that what Giphy had, they built on top of that to come up with something very solid.
This gives you rules for running minions, whereas Giphy stuff is not really about running minions. It's just here's a minion monster, but it doesn't give you anything about like the actual playing
Hmm.
and how you should play using minions, which is what this does. It gives you how to make them, how to turn existing monsters into them, and then most importantly how to run them,
Hmm. Yeah.
which is the most important part because you could turn. I mean, with just the rules on how to run them, even if you don't have the stats behind them, like the idea of just it being okay, you know, whenever they take damage, they die, regardless of whether their stats are, you know.
Hmm.
So I think this is good, and also they actually have a chart in here that's similar to Giphy's, but it tells you like, okay, if I'm going to take this minion and take this existing CR monster and turn into a minion, this is what happens.
Yep.
The end.
And I'm excited about using these rules in all of my campaigns that I'm running right now.
Yeah.
Without giving away too many spoilers, there are a number of locations and encounters across all the games that I'm running where having some solid minion rules would allow me to run encounters that are much more thematic to those areas and those particular parts of the adventure. So discovering these rules, and getting to kind of read through them, I'm like very excited about taking some prep time to get some good, solid minion-based encounters set up for all my campaigns. Definitely.
Yeah.
Now,
I think the last.
does every campaign need it? I mean, I think even Monster Hunter could benefit from it. Like that Rampage encounter that you ran,
Yeah.
you were using basically minion versions from Giphy, right?
Sort of.
Sort of.
Yeah, yeah. Like I didn't. So I made them like regular monsters, but I lowered their HP and stuff like that to make them be more minion like. But
Hmm.
for the most part, they were normal. Where I did use minions is I used minions a lot in Rhyme.
Hmm.
Um,
I remember
the
that. I remember that first fight against the wolves.
Well, the wolves were regular. What I used it was where you guys were inside the cave and you ran into those things.
Oh, okay.
And they were trying to crawl through the wall, and every time they died, you guys had to use radiant damage to kill them.
Hmm. Hmm.
That was minions, and then you ran into a lot of minions in the last chapter. All those monsters from the last chapter, almost all of them were minions.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Red Hand of Doom is so secret. There's a invading army, so obviously a campaign with an invading army. Just there you go. You
Yeah.
want to have a couple of encounters where the party is finally strong enough to be a 5 or 6 man army and stand toe to toe against an entire regiment of enemy troops. I mean, that's going to be an incredible hero fantasy played out right there. Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, there's a huge war brewing. That's, pretty early
Yeah.
on reveal in the campaign. Not too much of a spoiler.
Yeah.
So those are both, campaigns that would just benefit so much from having, an opportunity to kind of like have the players face these seemingly overwhelming odds, and then kind of fighting through, and then the legend afterwards, right? Like, those 5 stood against 100, Cyclopean warriors. Like 100 Cyclopses, that's not possible.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, but it is possible if you're using these minion rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very, very excited about them. All right, so this actually went kind of quick. We actually have
Yeah.
time left on the clock.
Mhm.
Do you feel that every game could benefit from minions, or do you think that it is just combat-centric games that would really benefit from them?
Well, I mean, if there's combat in your game
Mm,
at all, I think you can use minions.
mm,
Um, like they kind of have like I'm getting ready to run Cyberpunk, and you know some of the monster stat blocks they have, creature stat blocks that they have made for that system. Some of them are pretty much minions.
mm,
There's no way that they're going to be able to survive long enough. But in terms of the rules of like taking out a whole bunch of people, maybe maybe you find a bunch of there's something that you have to deal with that you can deal with a bunch of minions. Um, it could be like a bunch of I don't know. Here's a random example. I'm not saying that this is gonna be in the campaign, but like
uh-huh.
you run into like some type of lab, and there's just a bunch of rats that have been cybernetically messed up, and now they're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah, yeah.
swarm you. Like anytime there's like a
But
swarm, you
but
can change it to a minion.
instead of just being another swarm, it could
Yeah,
be yeah.
it could be it could be a set of minions using these rules.
Because I feel like medium sized and large sized creature swarms was definitely a Kobold Press monster design move,
Yeah.
and I thought it was a great move. And so ones that come to the top of my head, they've got a, I don't know if it's official raw, but I think there's an official skeleton swarm. So it's just a bunch of medium-sized skeletons that are in a swarm. I think there's
Hmm.
a zombie swarm. I know that I use the one for Kobold Press for the bar fight. I use that as my angry mob or my angry crowd stat
Hmm.
block. But at the same time, right? You could have just a big clump of dudes like that, or with these rules, you could have something with a bit more flexibility and a bit more
Yeah.
finesse that's maybe not so overwhelming, because
Hmm.
these medium and large size swarms can be very deadly. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, because until you drop them to 50%, I mean their damage output is usually pretty nuts.
And like
Yeah,
a good thing about this is that it works with positioning and using the environment to like not get surrounded.
right.
Like with
Yeah,
a swarm, since it's one creature, like there's nothing you really can do about it. They're always together. At least with these rules, PCs can do stuff to reduce the effectiveness of the minions. Not even just by killing them, but like just by making sure they're not surrounded.
yeah, and as you're saying, like it's hard to do crowd control on a fifth edition swarm, because fifth
Yeah.
edition swarm has so many immunities.
Yeah.
Has so many immunities, but
Oh,
you could very, I don't want to say very easily, but you have a lot more enticement to create terrain that sort of
yeah.
funnels NPCs and prevents them to get to certain places. It gives you a better reason for standing with your back to the wall, because now that my
Or
back's to the wall, that's 3 minions that can't be added to the attack.
you and your party members stand back together with each other.
Exactly,
Make a four person. Yeah.
to reduce the amount of available spaces. Absolutely, because fifth edition swarm, it's amorphous. It's just going to go right on top of you. It doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
It's so hard
Yeah.
to play strategically smart against a swarm, because the swarm has so much flexibility, and in a way, it's almost unrealistic to a certain extent. What that flexibility is. Whereas
Yeah.
these minion rules, it's so much more tactical and it's so much crunchier than just making something a swarm or following the DMG's advice and making it a mob. I very much like how these rules are set up. I
Yeah.
would expect nothing less at this point from MCDM's design team, though. Like
Yeah.
they really do know how to make fourth edition stuff disguised as fifth edition stuff. And they have a much bigger name than Giphy. So I think we have a much better chance of people trying this stuff and getting excited about this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. See, I don't want to give too many spoilers from our campaigns, but I'm already thinking back to some of the fights that we've had that would have probably been better if I had run them, or if you had run them, or
I
whoever.
bet.
Or,
I
yeah.
bet. I bet that baggy fight would have been a different thing if I was using these rules.
Oh yeah, if just the baggie was a real monster and then all the little baggies were minions. Oof,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for sure. And then there could have been a lot more baggies too.
Yeah. I mean, at
Yeah,
that point, then I could have had a lot more of them too.
yeah. See, it feels very excited. I'm excited. It
Yeah.
doesn't seem to happen as much nowadays. The last time I got really excited about rules was I liked the 10-point exhaustion system that just got in the last one D&D. I thought that was well done.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a little excited about some of the stuff from the one D&D playtesting. I'll be honest, like the state of things right now with D&D is making it hard to keep that excitement going.
Yeah.
But the last time rules for Dungeons and Dragons made me very excited was when I first found Glyph stuff. When I first
Yeah.
found it, started reading it, I thought I had found just the greatest, newest, freshest shit ever, and it was so reinvigorating. It reinvigorated fifth edition for me. It reinvigorated the hobby for me. And over the years of running Glyph stuff, I took the things that I loved the most and I kept them. And then the things that were just a bit too much work and a bit too much bookkeeping and a bit too cumbersome, I kind of left those behind.
Yeah.
I feel like this book, the MCDM Monster book, Flea Mortals, I am surprised and pleasantly so by the stuff that they're releasing that I thought this was going to be, no offense to his team, I thought this was going to be another monster book. I really did. I was like, do we really need another monster book?
Yeah.
Because like we've got all these amazing Kobold Press products to cover every type of monster that Wizards of the Coast doesn't cover. Monsters of the Multiverse was a step forward in my opinion to fixing a lot of the problems with 5th edition monster design. This book right here is turning it all on its head. Like the stuff here is so well thought out and the design is so purposeful. I think all the joking we do about Claw Claw Bite, I don't think we're going to be able to do that for the content in this book. I think that everything in this book has a purpose, has a design goal.
Yeah.
There's a flavor for everything, and they want it so that when you're fighting gnolls, it feels different from when you are fighting orcs. And when you're fighting humans, it feels different than when you're fighting gnolls and orcs, and so on and so forth. They want everything to sort of have its own distinct flavor. So many times with 5th edition monsters, it's just Claw Claw Bite. But Claw Claw Bite with a little fire damage this time. Or Claw Claw Bite, but maybe it'll knock you prone this time.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't have that consistent design throughout. Whereas this one's shaping up to really be something special. And
Yeah.
the minion rules, again, they're making me excited about designing encounters and prepping for encounters. Which maybe that should be the next thing we talk about on the podcast is what we started talking about earlier this week, and I sort of just like let the thread die because I was dying from a Christmas cold. But
Yeah.
purposeful encounter design.
Yeah.
Why is this encounter here? What is the point of this encounter?
Yeah.
I feel like outside of mini games, like gladiatorial events and things like that, I feel like I don't ever think about encounters as anything other than an obstacle in the way of the story. and I don't think that that's very good design. And
Yeah.
so it's something that I'm hoping to work on as a DM, is like designing different sorts of encounters. I'd love to have a document where we kind of just have examples of different types of encounters and kind of walk people through. Oh, you want to make a, they have to get away in a certain amount of time, or they have to kill the monsters as quickly as possible, or they can't kill any monsters because if any of the monsters die, the monsters will explode, which will destroy the airship they're on, or whatever, right? Like just like things that just shake it up a little bit, so that
Yeah.
every encounter doesn't feel like a claw bite encounter. Like
Yeah.
that's where I want to go, and I think that minions are going to be a key tool in the toolbox for doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say though, I feel like 5e is kind of a system that kind of makes doing those type of things harder in a way.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly because it's built around, allegedly, several pillars of play, but the pillar of play that gets the most attention is combat.
Yeah.
The pillar of play that got the most detail and the most work done on it is definitely that. And that's one of the things that I like about 1D&D is I do feel like they are trying to sort of address stuff outside of that with, guidelines for social encounters, guidelines for knowledge checks in combat and knowledge checks out of combat, and influencing NPC attitudes and reactions, which is and always has been a part of 5e, but there was never really good rules or guidance for that. So I don't know. Is it going to be enough all by itself, or are products like Flea Mortals going to be required to really help people kind of ramp up their games and make those combat encounters not just feel like yet another combat?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. So, and I think a big part of it too, and I mean, not to like get a head start on alternate encounters, but sort of like in this book, they tell you to tell them up front these are minions. I think a lot of times you just need to tell players, especially 5th edition players, hey, meta, your character with their background as a soldier understands XYZ, and your character with a background as an Imperial mage understands XYZ, and your character as a former assassin understands, ABC, aka the point of this battle is not to kill everyone.
Hmm.
And I like games that kind of tell you as you are about to commit, a couple of hours to a scenario, like a Final Fantasy Tactics or any of those turn-based, grid-based tactical games. They'll tell you right away what the objective is, and if they change the objective, they will tell you right away
Yeah.
that they've changed the objective. Because I was playing through Triangle Strategy, and I did not finish Triangle Strategy. I did not have the time, the endurance. I don't know. I just couldn't do it. But
Hmm.
there were some scenarios where it starts out, you need to do A or B, and then about halfway through it says, "Oh shit, you know what? Just try to do C instead." And I appreciated that. I did not want to not know that I should do C instead, because you already told me to do A and B. And if you hadn't stopped to tell me now I should do C instead, I probably wouldn't have thought to do it on my own. And
Yeah.
I think as DMs, we can be a little assumptive. I don't know if that's a word. We can make assumptions, right?
Yeah.
We're like, oh, it's a sandbox. It's a virtual reality machine. They should be able to just know that they need to retreat now. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. You should definitely, whether you do it full on, fourth wall breaking meta, or what, you should say, so, halfway through the battle, you've almost killed everybody, but you hear a rumble, and you look, and there's 40 more guys. I don't know why I keep saying 40, but there's 40 more guys, and they're not minions. And I'm going to tell you that they're not minions, and there's 40 of them. You should probably flee, or somehow calm down the situation. That's my recommendation. Calm down the situation or flee. I am recommending you do not fight these guys. I'm not railroading you. I am telling you that you can fight them, and I will respect your player agency. But there's 40 guys that just showed up halfway through the fight. Like, I think that doesn't happen enough. And I think that there's a big like push about like, what about my agency? What about my player agency? Okay, so
You can make the choice still. I'm not
sure,
stopping you.
stay and fight. Stay and fight. See how many guys you can kill before you all die or take a prisoner. That's also something you could do. But I'm going to tell you as a disclaimer that you should find a way out because it ain't going to go well for you. But yeah, there's a lot of people that are like, if my DM did that, I would be furious. Like, when I get in a fight in D&D, I expect to be able to beat that fight. Like that is an expectation a lot of people have. And if you turn around and say, well, you should flee, that is considered kind of taking away player agency and railroading. So, I don't know. Alexa, stop the timer.
I mean, that's the reason why I told you guys about the Hermitar when you first ran into it.
And I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, and then K-Nex points out in chat, the worst thing you could do as a DM is after they leave, turn around and go, I don't know why you guys fled. I think you totally could have done it. Yeah, I think I do that sometimes still, and you should never do that. Whatever the players do, back them on that play, right? Like, you know everything, they know nothing. It doesn't make you smart or cool to point out to them their mistakes because they don't know what you know. So all the DMs out there that when a scene is over, don't be like, man, you should have totally taken that secret deal. This is what would have happened. No, never tell them that would have happened. They didn't take the deal. They never get to find out what happens. They decided to run. You don't tell them what would have happened if they stayed. That's not how it works. That's not cool. But anyways, we definitely need to talk about encounter design next week or the next time we meet up to do this. But for now, final take. What is your final take on minions?
Minions are good. Use them if you feel like you should. You
made it rhyme too.
Yeah.
So.
And you have options. Mm-hmm. So I'm in the Christmas spirit right now. I'm rhyming.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. You got 3 good options. 1, just give all the monsters 1 hit point if you're too lazy to read these rules. Both the things we're looking at are free, by the way. So money is not the problem. You're just lazy if you don't go and read these rules. So if you want to use minions but you're too lazy to read these rules, just give you guys 1 hit point. If you want very specialized minions, look at Glyph. And if you want very 5th edition flavored and integrated minions, look at Flea Mortals. But between these 3 things, I think you should be able to find what you're looking for. And also remember that the Dungeon Master's Guide does have rules for running mobs, which is big groups of similar enemies. So
I think I got a way to use all this. So
okay.
For if you want to make a minion monster, Glyph is there for you to make that minion monster. Mm-hmm. If you want to know how to run a minion, look at MCDM. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have time to make a monster and you don't have time to look at rules to run it, and like you just need right now I just need to turn this thing into a minion real quick. Give it 1 HP.
Yep, give it 1 HP and use the average damage that is listed in every 5th edition stat block, and don't give them critical hits. 1 hit point, no crits, static damage. Boom, you got a minion. That's the easiest takeaway from this. But definitely, if you have the time, go read the MCDM stuff about minions, and definitely go check out Glyph because he's good people. And see what there is. You might find some other rules from Glyph that you really like too. So. All right. Hope everybody has a great Christmas or a great weekend if you don't have Christmas. And we got no games coming up next week for the most part. There might be some one-shots going on. There might be some prep streams. I'm trying to get some people together to play some Dungeons & Dragons Trivial Pursuit. So if you are interested in playing Dungeons & Dragons Trivial Pursuit on stream, it will be a game show style event hosted by Peanut and Hellebore, and you are welcome to. It's free. Just looking for at least 4 people. We'll take up to 20 people. I don't think 20 people would want to play fucking Trivial Pursuit, but we'll try to find a day next week or a night next week to play some Trivial Pursuit if people want to do that. As a D&D game show, could be fun. You got any announcements before we end the year?
No, not really. You know, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy holidays for everybody who's watching.
Alrighty.
You guys have a nice weekend.
Yeah. All right. See everybody next time.